Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn how to talk about experiences. So in previous classes we have been focusing on how to talk about an action that started and finished at a specific time in the past. And for that purpose we have used the simple past. So I have prepared some examples for you to remember. He worked for the company for 2 years. Mike and I studied business when we were at college. Mike didn't attend the meeting. He was in London. The new product arrived last week. They didn't leave the office until the papers were signed. Our boss left early yesterday. And finally, my colleagues gave me a present for my birthday. All right, so you may have noticed that I have highlighted, yes, all the verbs in the sentences. And let's find out why. So in the first two we have Mike and I studied business when we were at college. Mike didn't attend the meeting. He was in London. So here we have the simple past of the verb to be, was and were. So remember that was is used with I and the third person singular, he, she, and it. And were is used with we, you, and they. So here we have some more sentences. The first one says he worked for the company for 2 years. The product arrived last week. And one we already had was Mike and I studied business. So in these three sentences we have regular verbs. So with regular verbs in the affirmative form we add d, ed, yes, or ied, yeah, if the verb ends in a consonant plus y. Yeah? Remember that we replace the y and we add ied. All right. And then we have our boss left early yesterday and my colleagues gave me a present for my birthday. So in this situation we have irregular verbs. Irregular verbs in the affirmative form in the simple past are changed considering the second column in the irregular verbs list. And finally, we have two examples in the negative. He didn't attend the meeting and he didn't leave the office until the papers were signed. So whenever we use the negative form, we have to add the auxiliary verb didn't or did not, yeah, plus a verb in the base form, yes, without any changes. So don't forget that. Okay, and today we're concentrating on how to express unfinished events that started in the past and continue to the present. For example, I have lived in Paris for 5 years. So this means I still live in Paris. And Mary has worked here for 10 years or for about 10 years. This means she still works there. And we're also concentrating on how to express finished events in someone's life, yes, when the person is still alive. This is what we call a life experience. He has never traveled by plane, yeah, but there are still possibilities for him to travel. And Mike and Mary haven't been to England yet. So, meaning that they still have chances to travel to England because they are alive. All right. Let's concentrate a little bit on grammar. And let's pay attention to the following examples. Mary has studied a lot to be in this position. My cat has played with me the whole day. Jack has left the meeting early, meaning that the meeting hasn't finished yet. So what are the similarities between these three sentences? Well, first, that we have the third person singular, he, Jack, she, Mary, and it, the cat. And with the third person singular, we have used the auxiliary verb has. And then when the verb, the main verb is regular, we have added d or ed. And when the main verb is irregular, we consider the third column of the irregular verbs list. Yes, the past participle. We are not using the second column as we did in the simple past anymore. Yes. All right. And here we have some more examples. Mary and I have been to Italy before. You have increased your stress levels lately. They have already sent all the paperwork today, and I have never been there before. So what are the similarities? Well, that we have used have, yes, with I, we, Mary and I, you, and they. So with I, we, you, and they, we use the auxiliary verb have. And with regular verbs such as increased, we use d or ed. Yes, we add d or ed. And with irregular verbs, we use the third column in the irregular verbs list. Remember that we have to learn the verbs by heart. We have to memorize them. There's no need to memorize all the verbs in the list, but as we study them, you have to highlight them in the list and start working and try to memorize. All right. And in all these sentences, we have used the present perfect tense. What we are going to do now is to compare the simple past with the present perfect. So events from the past with life experiences. So we're starting with events from the past. So one of the uses is to talk about an action that started and finished at a specific time in the past. So I met Julie for 10 years. But then she moved away and we lost touch. Mike worked for the company for 2 years. So this means that he doesn't work there anymore. And to refer to life experiences or the use of present perfect, we have unfinished actions that started in the past but continue to the present. I have known Julie for 10 years. So this means that we are still in touch. Mike has worked for the company for 2 years, meaning that he still works in the company. So these sentences are different in meaning. Here we have past action that started and finished, and here we have an action that started in the past but continues to the present. And then we have a finished action in someone's life when the person is dead. My grandmother went to Mexico 3 times. So then she died, and there are no possibilities for her to continue traveling to Mexico. And a finished action in someone's life, but when the person is still alive. So my brother has been to Mexico 3 times. So there are still possibilities for him to travel 1, 2, or 3 more times to Mexico. All right. Now we're going to focus on the use of the present perfect with some adverbs. So 2 of the adverbs are ever and never to refer to any time up to now. For example, have you ever tried swimming? No, I have never tried it. So ever is used in questions, and never is used in affirmative sentences but with a negative connotation. We use yet for something we expect to happen, yes, meaning that it hasn't happened yet. In negative and negative sentences and questions, for example, she hasn't tried mat running yet. And has she had the meeting yet? Then we have just to talk about recent events. They have just done sprint cycling. And we have already for something that has happened before now. Tom has already won the national competition. And as you can see, we use just and already between the auxiliary verb have or has and the main verb. In these cases, done and won. And finally, the use of for and since in the simple present, in the present perfect, sorry. So we use for a period of time. For example, she has done kickboxing for 10 years or for about 10 years. You can use for with years, for 6 years, for a week, for a month, for a year, for hours, for 2 hours. And we use since to refer to a point in time. We have lived there since 2005. Here you have more examples. Since this morning, since last week, since last month, since last year, since yesterday, since I was a child, since Wednesday, and since 2 o'clock. Okay,